Welcome back, everybody. Week 2. Got our man Ryan Hodge here from Fantasy Labs, Underdogs, repping Underdog as well. And obviously, Jon Kelly joined me as always. Ryan, Hodgie, what's been happening in your life, man? Tell us, how was your week 1?
What's up, boys? Week 1 was good, but we booked a win. It's as simple as that. We didn't lose money, so we book a win. We move on. You get over the tilt. You get over the stuff that didn't go right. We move on to week 2. Maybe sweat some esports in between the slates, but other than that, we're just chilling, man, living the good life. What's up with you guys? Nice.
Yeah. That's basically how you have to take it. I had a Kyler lineup. I took it out last minute, very regrettably. It was actually a Kyler Kirk lineup, so not too happy about that. John, how was your week 1, and how's everything with you over where you're at?
Yeah. Everything's good here, but yeah, I actually I kind of sucked out because it looked like everybody was kind of it was a lower scoring week. The chalk wasn't really getting there much, and I ended up swapping to Tyreek Hill, which ended up saving me because he was only like 8% owned. Obviously got like the nut outcome there. So I actually managed to book like a 28% ROI for the week. So I wasn't too upset, although I did get dusted in like all of my like high stakes fantasy leagues, all that sort of stuff, just because all my studs didn't show up. But I'm excited to get into week 2, talk about, tournaments as always. This is the first time I know me and Hodge have interacted on Twitter a little bit, but this is the first time we're actually doing a pod together. So I'm excited. This will be a good one, boys.
Yeah, I think it'll be a good one as well. This is also the first time I've always talked to Hodge on Twitter, but never really been on the show with him. So it's cool to hop on here with you, Hodge, and let's kind of roll into week 2. Let's try to get this good mojo going and hope to have a week for the boys. Broncos and Jacksonville. We'll go down the list. We'll use Vegas dashboard on Fantasy Labs. Implied team total for the Broncos is 25.5. Jaguars is 19.5. Total. Let me just pull up my group so I know where I'm at real quick. Denver's -6 at Jags, and in the actual total is 45. Haji, I'll kick it off to you. Obviously, this isn't the highest total game, but anything here in particular that you like, or anything that you're targeting?
Yeah, so if I understand you guys correctly, we don't do that cash nonsense on this show, right? So I'm not spitting out
Absolutely
some optimal,
not.
like, I want this guy because he's got a 7.8 point implied floor based off of his opponent plus minus. Like, we're talking tournaments, right? So
yeah, tournaments, just PPPs.
Give me Noah Fant here. Same price point as Tyler Higby, and Tyler Higby is going to be the stone chalk at tight end. So I think it's actually a really good pivot. You have a half decent implied team total, right? I've got 7 pro trends for him over at Fantasy Labs. And if you take a look at fantasy points over expectation, he actually was in the negative. So basically, he should have seen more fantasy points last week based off of the targets, the routes, the time that he spent on the field, things like that. And you want to talk about a freak? This guy's best comp is Travis Kelsey. So, or his player comp is Travis Kelsey. So give me Noah Fant. I think he's a phenomenal pivot at the tight end position to Higby.
Yeah, I like the Noah Fant call. I think as a leverage play off Higby, like where we're seeing Higby pretty much play inside and out for the Rams all over the field. Fant, you're taking Jerry Jeudy out of this offense. He's going to get will definitely get a usage bump in general. And yeah, I like the Fant, especially in the total. Like, he's definitely going to go overlooked relative to Higby. John, what are your thoughts on Fant?
Yeah, I always like Fant. Bob, remember a couple years ago when me, you, and Kyle used to do a weekly thing? I felt like we were always on Noah Fant. Like, he's just a stud. Like Hodge said, like, he's athletic, profiles really well, and now with Jeudy out, I know a lot of people are sort of going to Tim Patrick there as maybe he's the next guy up, and he might be. But if everybody's going to go to him, I think, like Hodge pointed out, the leverage you'll get by going to Noah Fant, because he's not going to be a popular tight end, but also he's not going to be a popular target on his own team. But that would probably be like my only real look in this game. Maybe you go Tim Patrick if you're MMEing like you, Bob. But overall, I don't trust the Jaguars side. Trevor Lawrence looked pretty rough last week. I know he ended up getting there in garbage time in the blowout, but overall, I mean, this is an offense that I'm not really looking to get too many pieces of because I think you're relying on them to get there in garbage time. And this is just kind of a, 45 over under. It's not really a sexy game from a fantasy standpoint. I know all the higher over unders are in the afternoon slate, which we'll get to later, but overall, this isn't a big game that I'm looking to target.
Yeah, all the over-unders, if you're winning early, you better watch out this week because these totals later on, they get up there pretty quick. So there'll be a lot of points scored on the afternoon slate and the games that start around 4 p.m. Yeah, I love the fan call. Another tight end of this game, sneakily saw 6 of 8 targets, 48 yards. James O'Shaughnessy for the Jacksonville Jaguars, obviously Trevor Lawrence, rookie QB, may lean on his tight end. I don't mind him. And if Cedric Wilson is chalk, speaking to like kind of what Haji got into with basically Higby being chalk, and there's leverage off Higby in that sense by playing Fant. KJ Hamler's a guy for the Broncos that I think could see a little bit of uptick down at 3,800. I know he's 700 more than actual Cedric Wilson, but I think he gets involved as well. So especially with the Judy injury, it pretty much wraps it up for this game. Like 45-point total. We're not going to spend too much time on it. Next game, Bills -3.5 at Miami, 47.5 is the total. Bills have a 25.75 team total, 22.25 for the Miami Dolphins. Jon Kelly, we'll kick it to you. We'll let you start off this time. Obviously, I figure you probably don't like Josh Allen, but just get in the Bills, get in the Dolphins real quick.
Yeah, it really just comes down to what the field's going to do. And I'm not expecting this game to be super owned. So I think we can look for a Josh Allen bounce back here. Josh Allen, Steph Diggs kind of let us down last week. They definitely didn't have their normal or even, any sort of ceiling performance there against Pittsburgh. And I know I mentioned last week that was like my favorite sneaky game stack. And it didn't end up working out as we thought, called the Gabriel Davis touchdown, but we didn't get there with the normal guys. So I think if this is going to be a low owned stack now after being like one of the most expensive, then we can definitely take a look here. It's still a healthy team total. And the Miami secondary can be had. So I actually don't mind going back to the Bills here. But I think if you are doing that, it's obviously got to be with the pass catchers. Even though Devin Singletary looked good, he's just not going to get enough volume to really be in consideration, even in MME builds. But yeah, overall, it's really just the main guys for me. Josh Allen to Diggs stack, but also incorporating a guy like Cole Beasley, who's 13 targets last week. He's still cheap at 4.6K. But more interesting to me this week is Emmanuel Sanders, who is only 4K. And he was actually, I think he had the 6th most air yards in week 1, 149 air yards. So it's just one of those things where we know the Bills are going to throw a lot and he's on the field. As much as I love Gabriel Davis, Sanders is just on the field more. So I think we can definitely look at Sanders as a cheap option on a week where, this is not like week 1 where we had all that salary. This week, we kind of are scraping for salary a little bit. And I think Sanders and or Beasley provide some of that salary relief.
Yeah, you hit on Sanders. Josh Allen missed Sanders with like a 60-yard bomb, but easy going for a touchdown at that point. Haji, what are you seeing on the Buffalo in this Buffalo Miami game?
Yeah, I think Sanders is probably one of the best looking salary relief options to really just echo what John said. It is kind of tight this week. So in larger field tournaments, something like the Millie Maker or the Slant or whatever it might be, where you're playing against hundreds of thousands of people, I typically won't do a full onslaught. I wouldn't do like a Josh Allen, Diggs, and a Sanders. I would probably just play one of his pass catchers and then bring it back with like a Waddle or whoever it might be on the other side with Miami. In smaller field stuff, like 1,000 below or 1,500 and below, like the Spy or whatever it might be, I really like those onslaughts. And Sanders is a great way to get cheap exposure to a team that still threw the ball a lot. They threw the ball a ton, and they should still play at a quick pace. So I really do like that Sanders call.
Yeah, I like the Sanders call also. I like that you hit on Waddle, Haji, because it's tough to stack. Like Miami, we're not going to be trying to do that. especially in large field GPPs. But Waddle just for like the explosive game-breaking speed, and you pair him up with Sanders. Like I think that's sharp in terms of like trying to get that touchdown equity on both sides while not leaving yourself too open to getting too many players in this game. Yeah, it's tough to run this bet, like 47.5 total. We had 5 totals or over 50. This game might come in less owned relative to a lot of these other games, which is interesting in itself. Yeah, outside of the like Sanders, obviously Josh Allen and Diggs are always fine. It's always tough for me to roster guys going into Miami. I know it's early in the year, but I don't know. Josh Allen's always fine. Don't mind Diggs. I don't know. Yeah, I like the Sanders call and Wall. I think we kind of hit on it. It's not too much there for me in this game. Houston at Cleveland, 12.5's the total. At 12.5's the spread. Cleveland's a favorite. 48's the total. I think. Let me see real quick. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, highest implied team total in the slate, I think, or one of the highest. 30 and a quarter for the Browns. 17.5 for the Texans. Hodge, I'll kick it off to you. You want to start off this one?
Yeah, I think there's one play in this game, and it's Nick Chubb at $7,800. And even that, I think it's definitely a much, much stronger FanDuel play where touchdown equity is so much more important than it is on DraftKings. I mean, you can literally have a guy, Keenan Allen's a prime example. I know different position, but he doesn't find the box, and he still is in tournament winning lineups, right? Because of that full point PPR. I think Nick Chubb is a really strong play here. If you are looking to get a little bit different at the running back position, there's going to be a lot of guys playing Naji and a lot of guys playing, your CMC and probably Darrell Henderson and guys like that. So I think Nick Chubb is probably a guy. Look, he's got a 3.1 opponent plus minus in this matchup, which for those of you who aren't familiar with that, it's just like an adjusted fantasy points allowed or a DVP metric, right? So, and that's great. That's really good for the running back position. So you're looking at a guy with 20 plus touches easy in this game with that large of a favorite. And implied team totals are one of the things that obviously opportunities correlate the most to fantasy points, but implied team totals are so important for your running backs. And he has the second highest one. Just underneath, I think Tampa Bay is sitting over 30. So,
John, do you have a take on Chubb and the Browns?
Yeah, I do. First off, I'll take my L for last week because Bob liked Chubb in tournaments, and me and Kyle kind of shit all over him, and he ended up doing exactly what we were like. Well, he pretty much has to score 2 touchdowns, and that's what he did. So I'll take my L because my Derrick Henry shares had me in tears on Sunday. So, but yeah, I totally agree here. I think this would be the setup for Chubb that I like, where home favorite, going up against a defense that they can run all over. I think we see more of him than Kareem Hunt. And I think he's going to be productive too. And he's not super expensive, when you factor in, CMC's pushing 10K, Kamara's just under 9K. So he's definitely going to be a popular build this week. But I'm also more interested in other ways to attack this game. We know Odell Beckham's not going to play, so I think you can kind of take shots on some of the other wide receivers. But also, I thought David Njoku looked pretty good for the usage that he got last week. I was kind of hoping Austin Hooper would be more kind of the one there, but it's clear that they're just going to mix in guys throughout the season. So we'll see there, but I don't hate taking a shot on Mixon in large field MME type builds, just as like a, low owned guy who does have a ceiling in a high team total game. But overall, Texans, I'm not really trusting the Texans to put up, 38 points or whatever, like they did in week 1. So I know Brandon Cooks always has that big ceiling, big play type guy, but overall this is definitely one where I'm more interested on the Cleveland side.
Yeah, these Houston Texans are going to be tough to play all year, especially like Tyrod Taylor's loves to check down. So even if Brandon Cooks is going to get all the work on the other side in a game where they're trailing by 12.5, a lot of these passers are going to be check downs, and it's like usually not Brandon Cooks' game. Like we're seeing him catch longer passes, deeper A-dot receiver. It's just it's different to kind of see him basically be utilized in this way. in terms of Chubb, like 7,800, I was hoping he'd be a little bit chalkier after last week, but it doesn't look like he's going to be. So with the prices, I think you go right back to him, especially with the prices of these stud running backs kind of increasing. Anthony Schwartz, 3,300. You mentioned Odell sitting. He got a ton of targets and kind of ran. He was kind of the guy that kind of stepped in terms of trying to take over for Odell. Like, I'm not saying play Anthony Schwartz or one of these Cleveland receivers even in a game where they're going to be winning. They're likely going to be winning. It's just a tough call to play one of these guys. But interesting note is that he was the one who kind of picked up the slack where a lot of people thought it was going to be Donovan Peoples-Jones. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Like, this game's – I don't want to target a lot of Houston guys. Nick Chubb's pretty much the only guy I'd be interested in rostering.
I'll give one on the Houston side, and it is Cooks. It's the obvious one at $5,900 on DraftKings, but he was like 6th or 7th in week 1 in air yards and still commanded like 7 or 8 targets from Tyrod Taylor. So if you do think that they will be slinging a lot, I just think he goes overlooked. He's at a dead price zone, right, for this type of a team total. So it's very like you better be firing 300 lineups across like a couple different 150s, I think, as like a volume player to really have 5 or 6% of him. But he did have a lot of air yards, and we love some air yards. So
see, it's interesting you say that because I didn't want I should have been more I figured just with how Tyrod plays, I honestly just didn't do my homework getting into this. I didn't know he was 7th in air yards last week in terms of Cooks.
One, two,
that's
three,
good.
four,
That's
five,
definitely
six,
good to know. So I feel more comfortable rostering him in that sense.
The thing that always gets me with Brandon Cooks is I don't play him and he does what he does on Sunday, 5 catches, 130 yards or whatever. And then I do play him and he's concussed immediately. And then I just get nothing from him. So yeah, he's a guy that always seems to tilt me a little bit.
It's those guys with the monstrous yards per target are always going to be tilting. I mean, it's like Mike Williams to an extent, right? Where it's just it either happens or it doesn't. But that's where it's a small percentage play across a large subset of lineups. I won't own him. I play strictly smaller field 3 max single entry stuff. I won't have him in a single of my 20 to 25 lineups that I end up building. So for what it's worth.
Yeah, I still like the call, though, just because knowing that the air yard situation is what it is, I was really tentative with these Taylor wide receivers. All right, we've spent too much time on Houston, Cleveland. Let's hop into Cincy, Chicago. John, I'll let you kick it off. -2.5, Chicago's favorite. Total's 46. Cincy's team total is 22, and Chicago's 23. John, go get after it.
Yeah, I mean, Cincinnati didn't look bad after I was I think they're going to start off slow. It's going to take some time. No, it didn't really take much because Minnesota's defense really just gave it up. So I think Chicago, their defense, I think is going to be better, but they didn't look great against the Rams. We'll see how they hold up against Cincinnati. But I think you can go back to the Joe Burrow stacks here. I know Tyler Boyd let people down somewhat. T. Higgins, he showed up, but he also was he dropped the second touchdown. He got taken off the field for dehydration briefly, came back later. So we'll see if he's going to be popular again. Jamar Chase obviously had the big touchdown there. I think you can go back to those Joe Burrow stacks. Joe Mixon is a guy who I'm probably just going to let the field chase that. I was pretty big on Mixon last week, but now he saw a pretty decent price hike. He's now up to $7K. And I think this is just a spot where I'm okay with just looking elsewhere and letting the field chase that. I think the way I'm targeting it is with the Bengals stacks. And then on the Bears side, I think Allen Robinson shows up this week. They had a tough matchup against the Rams. Like I mentioned, A-Rob's a guy who, even with Andy Dalton at quarterback, I do think he's going to get his, even though it wasn't pretty in week 1. So I don't mind going back there as a guy who's still affordable and probably going to be relatively unowned. Marquis Goodwin had a little bit of targets there. He's a guy who's a speedster, similar to that Brandon Cooks style. He's just a guy who obviously I play more like Hodge. I'm not MMEing like you, Bob. But if I were playing 150, I'd be getting shares of Darnell Mooney, of Marquis Goodwin, just because I think this Bengals secondary can be had. The Minnesota, they torched them a little bit, but they also didn't have much time to throw the ball because their offensive line is so bad. So a team like Chicago, who's at least going to be able to protect better than Minnesota, I think they can take some deep shots here against the Cincinnati secondary.
Yeah, I like those takes a lot, especially the Allen Robinson call. He's definitely going to go overlooked. Seen 11 targets last week. Didn't really work out for him, but he's Allen Robinson. He could get it done, even with Andy Dalton at QB. Haji, what are your thoughts on this game?
Okay, so I'm actually going to have you guys convince me or maybe agree with me. I stone faded Montgomery in any season-long team, in any best ball team. I mean, like he couldn't have gone late enough for me to take him. Am I a total donkey, or what is he in this Chicago offense? Well, because at $6,100 and the usage that he got against the Rams, and he ran okay against a very good front. So, like, I don't know, $6,100 David Montgomery. Like, do I need to come around on him? Am I turning a new leaf here, or?
So I did the same. I took the same approach you did, and then Matthew Wiley was like telling me, "Oh, the guys that are most overweight on are Montgomery, two other guys," and I was like, "Montgomery, really?" And I'm like, "Shit, I gotta get more Montgomery shares." I didn't get enough of them, but I got at least an adequate amount, I would say, in best ball. Or I don't know. He played good at the end of the year. Like I have the same take as you, though. He's on the Bears. Like the offense isn't great. We don't kind of know what their whole situation. He looks good though. That's the scary thing. He looks really good. And he was going later than he probably should have been. John, your thoughts?
Yeah, I definitely liked him a little bit more than you guys, but I definitely wasn't like a big Montgomery. So I view him as like in season long, I didn't take him at all, right? But in best ball, I was okay if he fell to like the fifth, some end of the fourth round, even in some best ball teams, just because I think with the usage that he has, they didn't really bring in anybody in Chicago outside of Damian Williams as his backup, and pretty much all through preseason and the offseason, they were saying, he's going to be our guy. He might touch the ball he might rush 300 times. So it was just a usage thing for me. Like, I think he'll have spike weeks, but at the same time, I don't want to have to rely on him to do that weekly production. So similar to DFS, where we only care about 1 week. So to your point, I do think he is affordable, and I think it's a pretty decent matchup. I actually don't hate the play, and I originally wasn't even really considering it. Like, I didn't even write him down in my notes, but I actually don't hate that.
Yeah, I missed the David Montgomery 6,100. This Chicago team, like, I always overlook. Like, Allen Robinson, 11 targets. I just don't want to roster anyone. Andy Dalton's basically the team Andy Dalton's the quarterback for.
Okay, so here's what I'm taking from our conversation. This team total is at 22 and 23, right? So we have a 45-point over-under. But everything that the three of us are saying are, well, maybe David Montgomery looks better. Allen Robinson, great targets. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. Andy Dalton was serviceable. And then obviously Joe Burrow is great. So one, does this game hit the over? Two, is there sneaky shootout appeal here, quote unquote? Like, the most tout thing I feel like I could say is like sneaky shootout. But like, I don't know, the more that I'm talking about this, it feels like maybe some exposure in very large field stuff could be sharp the right way. Because I do think my opinions on Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, two guys I was very high on coming into the season, they looked phenomenal. I mean, Chase kind of showed he was the alpha by not having to get an IV, but I think if T. Higgins doesn't leave, I think he missed 10 to 12 offensive snaps. And so that tilted their market share of targets. Jamar ended up at like 26 or 27% market share of targets, and T was at 20. But I mean, they were like head to head in market share of targets, right? So I think playing both of those with a Burrow and an Allen, I think is actually really fine. If you're playing something like 10 entries and a $33, like, I got to be real specific about contest selection with this type of a stack, right? I mean, like, very, like, you need to expose yourself to this team properly in the right contest selection, but I actually don't hate it. I think this is something you maybe pencil down, and as you're building, come Saturday or whatever, like, it's definitely something that could work its way into a couple different lineups.
Yeah, I like how you hit on, like, basically your contest selection and, like, where you're kind of putting these teams. Obviously, we're talking about the Millionaire Maker, but I think it's important to build your lineups for your contest. And I don't think enough people kind of talk about that. like last week, for example, like in the $5, you have to double stack. But as you get down to like these 1,000-man, 500-man fields, like you could have got away with single stacks or skinny stacks in that case, or small, like couple 300-man fields.
Right.
Like, I think just in the $5 specifically, last week we were talking about a lot of doubles. But now with these fields kind of shrinking a little bit. I don't know, like it's a 4K milli. I doubt I'll get a ticket. I'm trying to win a ticket now, but I doubt I'll get one. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how much I get for the 3 max stuff. Like I think I'll probably float around some 3 max stuff this week. What are your thoughts in terms of like this in like that for the Wildcat, the stack, Haji?
That's actually the exact type of a contest. If you're maxing it, you can put 60 in that. So you definitely have to have the roll to do that.
Yeah.
But that is the exact type. If I had 60 entries in the lineup, if DraftKings was like, hey, thanks for depositing so much in week 1, here's 60 entries into the Wildcat, I would absolutely be making this a one Wildcat team without a doubt. And I do think it is a perfect Millie team. I really do. The Millie team, you have to just be the stone nuts perfect, right? So I really do think that some form of this stack could end up, if it hits that sneaky shootout, if this hits like 54 points and these teams are really doing it, or the Bengals score 27 and meanwhile the Bears only put up 17, but Allen Robinson catches 11 balls or something stupid. Like, I don't know. It feels like a weird game to be at here I am thinking I know more than Vegas, but it feels like a weird game to be at 45 points.
I know we spent a lot of time on this game, but I am actually, it's growing on me since we talked about it more. But I also think in general, Cincinnati is going to be a good look at overs. Like I think we're going to see them go over on their team total a lot. So to your point, like I could totally see this game shooting out. It just comes down to if the Chicago side is able to keep up, because their offense obviously didn't look great.
Right.
But like I said, the matchup's much better this week. And the last thing I'll say is in terms of the wide receivers, T. Higgins is 5.4K. Jamar Chase is 5K. So I think, Chase, the more sexy name, now people are like, okay, Chase is here, had the long touchdown. I think more people are going to just take the savings with him. So it's one of those spots where you can pay up a little bit more just to get that ownership discount and possibly get a little extra leverage there. So I like that T. Higgins call.
How's Chicago's front seven? Because Joe Burrow threw the ball 27 times last week. You figure he throws more versus Minnesota. Now they're basically going into Chicago. Like, is Burrow going to throw more than 27 times? Like, that's what we're going to need for them to hit the over, right?
For sure.
Yeah. See, and then we get brought back down to earth. Thank you.
I didn't know. I get the appeal though. Like I 100% get the appeal. San Fran, 3.5-point favorites at Philadelphia, coming across country. This total opened up at 45 and it's up to 50. That's a huge jump in my opinion, or just in general. San Fran's 26.75 team total. Eagles are 23.25. Who did I go to? Hodge, you start this one off. What do you like about this game?
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see a couple more practice reports and what beats are saying in regards to Elijah Mitchell and how that running back rotation is really shaping out. From what it looks like from a market share, like projecting this team from a running back standpoint, it's very difficult for you to type in anything over 55% for market share of opportunities for Elijah Mitchell. But if he does get over that, 5K is kind of a really good spot against the Eagles, who do have a tough front seven, but I don't have 5K with a very talented running back. And honestly, the only other thing to me that immediately stands out is obviously Trey Sermon was a healthy scratch. So it's extremely tough to project those running backs. But going back to Hurts and going back to Devonta Smith was, don't quote me on this, I should double check this, but when I was doing research earlier, I think he was one of 5 wide receivers to command 50% of his team's air yards. So I'll double check that while one of you guys are talking, but I thought that was pretty impressive. And so Hurts to Devonta Smith, I think, is fantastic as a small stack, and then bring it back with Kittle, whoever you want.
John, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know, man. The Eagles are so hard for me to trust on a weekly basis. And I know I kind of thought,
right?
I thought the same thing last week, but it's so true. Like, I'm just waiting for the shoe to drop. And like, I know they look good last week. I know Hurts is a baller. Like, there's no doubt about that. But I still think we're going to see games where this offense just doesn't produce. I don't know if this is the spot, though, because, I mean, if Detroit's able to put up 30-plus points against San Fran, then you would think the Eagles can. This could also be a spot where the Eagles just look good again. They win, and everybody in Pennsylvania is like, Eagles 2-0 Super Bowl. But yeah, I think the Hurts Devontae stack still super affordable. We saw Jared Goff was able to pass all over this Niners secondary. So and then Hurts obviously always has the rushing upside. So I think Hurts, it really just comes down to how popular he's going to be, because I actually think where last week I thought maybe he'd be a little bit overowned, this week I'm more interested in Hurts, even without stacking him with Devontae, just solo running Hurts naked, is because at 6.5K, like, there's a game who everybody's going to play, and it's my favorite game. Everybody's favorite game is the Chargers Cowboys, which we'll get to later. But both the quarterbacks in that game, Dak 6.8K, Herbert 6.7K. I think that's going to garner a lot of the ownership. So we can get Hurts at 6.5 at probably less owned and arguably just as high of a ceiling. So yeah, I actually really like Hurts this week.
Yeah, I like Hurts also. I like the rushing equity. San Fran's D just didn't look great. Couldn't do anything to stop Jared Goff. I don't want to take too much from a one-game sample size. They did lose Jason Verrett, for what that matters at this point. I don't know. How old is Jason Verrett's kind of a fossil. He's had a lot of ACL injuries, I'll tell you that much. Yeah, the Eagles always funnel to the pass, it seems like. So I don't want to play Jimmy G, but I like the weapons like Deebo Samuel, 6,700. He had a great game last week. 198, 12 targets. Kittle, I think Kittle 4 or 5, 7, 8 yards. Like, it wasn't the greatest week, but this could be a week I kind of look to some of these San Fran guys. And I like the calls on Hurts and Devonta Smith. Yeah, with this total moving like it is, I 100% get it. And Devonta Smith with that target share. Did you find that number, Hodge?
I looked. It wasn't quite 50%, but he had a great team market share of his air yards.
He had a great week in general.
Yeah. I will say this on the Deebo, Brandon Ayuk. So I thought it was strange that he was like limited, Ayuk specifically. Yeah. He was limited and then was like, hey, we're not really going to use him a ton. And then all of a sudden he got thrown in on special teams. And he's literally out there on special teams. And if I understand, like, I don't have like the biggest hand in the dirt take, or truly I don't understand like real football as much as some people might think I would, but you don't put your stars on special teams when you're saying that they're limited due to an injury. It just doesn't make sense. So to me, it was almost like Deebo's the alpha, like flat out. That's what Shanahan was saying. So I don't know. This is a weird take, but like, just my 2 cents on the whole Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, issue.
I get that. I like that take. I was a little thrown off by that too. I don't really know. Like, was he benched? Like, I have no, not like benched.
Right.
Was he playing special teams? And it didn't make a ton of sense. Eli Mitchell at 5K. We got to get some more stuff on that. You keep going. I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say we saw it with the running back situation, right? It was the same thing. Like, everybody thought Trey Sermon was the direct backup, and then all of a sudden Sunday morning he's a healthy scratch, and then it comes out, Shanahan said he wasn't even a top 3 back in the offseason. So it could be a similar thing where nobody reported that. And so it's a similar thing with Ayuk, where everybody thought he might be the alpha there coming off a decent season last year. Who knows if it's the injury, whatever, but it might just be Shanahan saying he was outplayed since he was hurt, that sort of thing. I don't know. It's funny that we saw that with the Trey Sermon thing. So now we're having questions about Ayuk. So it could be something similar. I think over the course of the season, though, we do start to see him at least be like a 1B to Deebo Samuel. I mean, it wouldn't make sense for him not to be. So I don't mind that. It's just one of those situations we have to wait until probably Sunday to figure out what his what his role is going to be.
Yeah. Any Miles Sanders love from either of you in this situation?
No, I have a tough time paying $7,000 for a running back with an implied team total of 23 points when his quarterback is taking away rushing equity to begin with. It's just that's a tough one for me to swallow. I typically won't play those guys.
Yeah, I get it, 100%. New Orleans -3.5 at Carolina, totals 45. I'm telling you guys, these games get better. I promise. Eventually, Jon Kelly, we'll kick it to you, bud.
Yeah, obviously on the Carolina side, CMC, I mean, what a stud. Like the dude almost goes double bonus, 100, and it was like, it wasn't even like the top thing. Like it was just like, oh, CMC almost got the double bonus. Like he's just going to do stuff like that every single week. So seeing him as the most expensive, that's where he should be. I know it's expensive on a week like this where we don't have a ton of salary, but I still think it makes sense in tournaments to try to pay up for CMC as much as you can, just because he's always going to have that type of ceiling. Sam Darnold, I don't think any of us think is a very good quarterback, but I think he can throw a little 5-yard. Oh, sorry. If there's any differing takes there, feel free to cut me off. But I think he's capable of throwing the ball a 5-yard screen or dump off to CMC and then letting him do his thing. And then I'm always kind of interested in DJ Moore or Robbie Anderson. I think they're just going to be guys that have different sort of spike weeks throughout the season. I don't know if this is the spot. And then on the New Orleans side, it's kind of similar to what I was saying with Joe Mixon, where, you know, a couple of these guys popped off a little bit, but I'm probably just going to let people chase on that outside of Kamara, who is just like, okay. So I don't mind going back to Kamara, but like the Juwan Johnson who showed up, Deontay Harris had the big play. Obviously we were right on Marquis Callaway to fade that chalk. I'm probably not looking on the New Orleans side much, but you guys could let me know if if I should be changing my mind on that.
You can go. Sorry.
No, you're good. Look, I think I was more half jokingly about Sam Darnold. I do genuinely think that he can support both of these wide receivers all year long. And that's more what I'm saying. Getting away from Gase, I think he's going to be much, much more than just a game manager. I think he will show up for his team, lead his team in, fourth quarter drives, things along those lines. But in this matchup specifically, Sam Darnold with an opponent plus minus of -2.6 is one of the worst ones on the slate. I think the Saints secondary is look, I think what we saw with Green Bay was probably more issues with Green Bay than it was the Saints truly showing up, but they are a good secondary. They're not a half bad secondary. So I don't have a lot of love for this game. I think you're looking at CMC and I think you're looking at Kamara. I don't think you're going to the Juwan Johnson. I don't think you're trying to get cute with Adam Troutman or going back to Callaway or anything along those lines. I genuinely think it's 2 running backs in this game. That's all you're putting in your player pool, and then you're moving on. Lacey Jameis looked great, but I'm also not like I don't know if he's not making the needle move for me.
So I pretty much have the same take, Kamara and CMC. Do we worry that CMC, like everyone keeps saying, oh, that was his floor game last week. Do we worry that maybe this Carolina Panthers offensive line versus this defensive front of the Saints might be difficult? And I don't think CMC, like he's always chalky, but he's not going to be egregiously chalky at 9,900, right?
Yeah, I think there will be other running backs who command a lot more ownership at that price. But CMC will, like you said, he will always find his way into lineups because of what he did. He didn't find either bonus. He didn't find touchdown, and he put up almost 30 DK, 27.7 or something. I don't remember exactly what it was, but that's just extremely difficult to fade even at 10K. I mean, I don't think that's his floor. Like, you're insane if you act, you know what I'm saying? But like, that is just he's a very tough fade. In tournaments, he's a lot easier to fade, but he's still tough to fade.
Yeah, no, I get it 100%. Yeah, both running backs in that game. That's pretty much it. I don't really have like a strong take. That's legitimately all I got. I got Rams -4.5 at Indy. 47.5 was the open. It's up to 48.5. The Rams team total is 25.5, and the Colts team total is 22. John, kick it off with you. I like the Rams this year. I'm very bullish, so impress me with what you have to say, because if not, I'll come find you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always rooting for Matty Stafford. I've just always liked Stafford, so seeing him play well for the Rams was nice. I think Cooper Kupp looked like a baller. Cooper Kupp's still affordable. What's he like, 6K or somewhere in that like upper mid range? Yeah, 6K flat. I think that's super affordable. On the Indianapolis side, the Jonathan Taylor usage in the receiving game was very encouraging. Jonathan Taylor has been a guy who I sort of put in that Nick Chubb category last season because, you know, Nyheim Hines was always like the third down back there. But, you know, we saw him. What did he have? Like 8 targets or something? Like he had a decent amount of targets. Yeah, 7 or 8 targets for Jonathan Taylor. If he's going to get that type of usage week to week, like he's going to be cheap based on where they're pricing him at. Like if we can project that usage moving forward, because he's a guy that has a big play ceiling. If he's going to have both the rushing capability and the receiving, then I am definitely interested in Jonathan Taylor, especially because I don't think the Colts are all that good. So I think they're going to be trailing more. So yeah, I like Jonathan Taylor in this game, even in a tough matchup against the Rams, but only if we think he's going to get that pass catching work. But I think the majority of my interest would be on the Rams side. In Cooper Kupp at 6K, you could try to get the leverage off Kupp, going back to Robert Woods, and then obviously Tyler Higby as the affordable tight end play there. But yeah, that's probably the gist of my interest in this game.
Yeah, I like those takes. I like the Rams, like Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor, I think, is going to be – I just wish they'd give him a full workload eventually, but 7,200, like, it's not a bad price. Haji, any thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I think this is the game to stack other than the afternoon slate.
I think I'm kind of with you on that.
Yeah, I've got Matthew Stafford as my 4th highest rated quarterback in my model. I have Cooper Kupp as my 2nd highest wide receiver in my model. I have Darrell Henderson as my 6th running back rated in my model at $5,700. Sorry, he's my 3rd highest rated running back. I changed a little bit there. Tyler Higby is the 1st rated running back in my model. Like, I mean, they're literally at every skill position. You have a player with top 5 in my model rating. My model is built specifically for tournaments. They all have great opponent plus minuses. The matchup is great. The implied team total is really good, just shy of 26 points. I mean, that's a pretty good implied team total. And so I think if you are stacking a game that's not on the afternoon slate, I think this is the game to do it. It's difficult because Stafford doesn't have the rushing upside, so I do think that you play him double stacked. I think you play Woods and Kupp and Stafford, and then honestly bring it back with Pittman, who was a major bust last week. I mean, like, you're going to get insanely low ownership on this type of a game. So very, very large field stuff that we're talking here, like the Millie Maker, but that's my stance on this one.
Yeah, major flop lag with Pittman. Everyone was on Pittman last week, only saw 4 targets for 29 yards. It ended up being Zach Pascal. He had the 2 scores, 4 or 5 targets. Yeah, I love the Rams, love the call, love the Rams stack. Cooper Kupp, 6K, Robert Woods, Stafford. Gives you leverage off Higby. You can play Higby and differentiate the Higby play by playing one of Cooper Kupp and Woods with Stafford. I like Darrell Henderson. I like Darrell Henderson a ton in the dome. I feel like a guy like that, burner, he could break a slate easily. I mean, I don't know what his ownership. He looks actually pretty chalky. He's up there at 20%. I was hoping he'd be a little bit lower. Yeah, I love the Rams. On the other side, I want to see one of these. I would target the Michael Pittman play. I like the call there, 4,300, little flop lag. Paris Campbell's down at 3,600 as well. Paris Campbell didn't see much action either. I feel like this Indy offense will pick up, not necessarily too much, but I think that because Wentz was kind of banged up or just getting back, so to speak, like they'll evolve as an offense going forward. So that's pretty much my take. I like the Rams stack. I love that call, Haji. Vegas at Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh -6. Total is 49. Derek Carr, kind of a crazy end to that game the other night. Threw a pick, ended up coming back, got them to win the game, threw a touchdown pass to Zay Jones. John, any love for these Raiders or Steelers or anyone in this game?
Yeah, I think so. I think, this would probably be the game. Actually, you kind of changed my mind on the Cincinnati-Chicago. That might be my favorite game outside of the afternoon slate to stack. But if not that one, then this one here, the Raiders-Steelers. I mentioned last week, I think the Steelers are going to be in a decent amount of shootouts. I know it kind of didn't materialize in Buffalo, but that was more on the Buffalo side than the Steelers side. But we can capitalize on the pricing. Everybody knows the Monday, whenever the Monday night, they price out next week before the Monday night games. So we're able to capitalize on a lot of these cheap Raiders guys that showed up. Hunter Renfrow had a decent amount of targets. He's 3.6K, not a sexy play, but I think I'm more interested in Bryan Edwards. Bryan Edwards is super cheap, especially in the, I know he didn't do much until literally the end of the game, but he's 3.7K, had a big last couple drives there. I think he's more the wide receiver one there. He ran more routes than Henry Ruggs. He was on the field more than Henry Ruggs. Henry Ruggs, I think, is just going to be that smaller speedster, big play guy, whereas Edwards can make the big play, but also be the reliable first down target as well for Derek Carr. But yeah, I think this could be another one where we just see both of the guys throw a decent amount. On the Steelers side, I'm always interested in their pass catchers, Deontay Johnson, even Juju, and then obviously Chase Claypool's a stud, so we can always look to him. I'm not sure if you guys knew this, but Naji Harris played 100% of the snaps, which is everybody's favorite thing to talk about. But in all seriousness, though, it is a good thing to look at, and he's going to be on the field a lot. The pass catching work wasn't really there as much in week one, but Naji Harris is just a guy that I want to be early on. But I'm just concerned that he's going to be a little too own this week just because he is affordable and everybody seems to be mentioning that he's on the field for every play. So I could see him catching some buzz here. So I'm kind of a little suspect there. So I want to hear your guys' take on Naji Harris and then obviously the game on both sides.
You don't want to be week one early on Naji Harris like I was.
Same,
so
Bobby.
Yeah.
Same. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
That was rough. Hodge, do you have any takes?
Yeah. I'll back the Naji take here. Look, it was only 3 targets, like John said, but he did run 30 routes on 35 or 36 passing downs. So it's encouraging, really, even though it was only 3 targets. I have his fantasy points over expectation at negative 8.8. So obviously we expect him to score a lot more than what he did, right? So that's basically saying he should have scored at least 8 more points. And you want to talk about another model rating? The number 1 running back in my model is Naji Harris. So I don't know how to not play the guy at that. And that's probably because I have a strong projection for him, why he rates so high, but also because of his salary. It's very difficult to get away from him if you are looking to stack these late games. So that's kind of where he just keeps getting put into lineups.
Yeah, I get 100%. If he's going to play 100% of the snaps, no pun intended, he's going to project well, especially how many running backs are actually playing? No one. So
Darrell Henderson played 95.
90. Yeah. So I don't know. It's tough to get away from Naji Harris, even though he had a bad week last week. We'll kind of give him a do-over. I like the Bryan Edwards call, John. I feel like late in the game, you see a receiver like that get targeted, it shows Carr has the confidence. So I don't mind going to him. Darren Waller, 19 targets, 105 yards, up to 7,600. He's obviously someone you're going to consider playing, especially if the usage is going to be that high. The issue is the totals in these other games, just in Waller's price tag as a tight end. It's just going to be difficult to really – who would you rather have, Higby or Waller in a vacuum? I obviously want to have Waller, but Higby at 4,400, or 4,100 or whatever he is, just very difficult to get away from. These Pittsburgh receivers, I don't know. Deontay Harris, I mean, Deontay Johnson, I'm sorry. I love Deontay Johnson. I just don't know, like, with this offensive line, how he obviously scored last week, but I don't know. Maybe he'll go overlooked. I haven't looked too much into ownership. Yeah, I don't know. There's not a ton from this game I really love. I probably need to take a second look. New England minus 3.5 at the Jets. Totals 43. This game is absolutely brutal. 24 is New England's team total. 18 is the team total for the Jets. I have absolutely no interest here. John, do you have any interest?
Not really, man. I think if you are looking to target it, it's probably going to be Damian Harris. You know, he's pretty affordable. They gave it to him like 20 plus times. Rushed for 100 yards, got the bonus. That's really his ceiling, though, is he needs the 100-yard bonus and 1 or 2 touchdowns. Could it happen here? It's possible, but like you said, probably not going to be a big target for really anybody this week, and it makes sense.
Yeah, slow. Sorry, go ahead, Bobby.
No, you go. You're good.
Slow projected pace of play in this game for me. Damian Harris, $5,400. And look, I know people want their darts, so I'll give you one go back to Elijah Moore. I mean, he commanded a good amount of his team's air yards. He had one called back, and I think people have been saying that same thing as Naji Harris is 100% snap rate is. Elijah Moore had one called back. Well, he did. It didn't count, but I think it's an option this week. He did get a price hike though, so it's not quite as in play as it was in week 1.
Yeah, 5,400 for Harris is fine. He had the fumble at the end, but I think it'll be good. It's Belichick. They want to run the football. This is why the game's pacing out. That's why it's projecting so slow for you. Patriots, I feel they're going to be a grinded out team all year. Not really a ton to love. Minnesota at Arizona. We get in the 4:00 games. We get into the good games. We get into my MVP choice early this summer, but I think it was everyone else's as well. Kyler Murray, he balled the fuck out last week. Just shit all over that Tennessee Titans defense. DeAndre Hopkins, Christian Kirk, Chase Edmonds, all the Arizona guys. Haji, what's your thoughts on this game? I want to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, so I like to do these polls where I'll kind of do my own ownership projections and then feel what I think is going to be ownership, and then I'll just tweet something out into our small little bubble. And Kyler, Hopkins, and Jefferson are the second most popular stack behind CD, Dak, Keenan, Wilson, Metcalf, AJ Brown, and then I put in Brady, Godwin, Ridley just to see where the field was on them. Yeah. And look, this is just a very, very, very easy game to stack. Phenomenal total. Arizona with a great implied. You don't need to say anything about this game. Pace as well, implied team total. You know who's hogging all the market share of targets. You know who's getting all the opportunities. The question is, do you want to play this game, or do you want to play the Dallas game, or do you want to play in any one of these late slate games? So no hot takes here, other than if you want to play them, man. They're in a good spot.
Yeah, I love the analysis, love the breakdown. You didn't say too much, but you said basically what you needed to cover. This game's going to play fast. It's a very good game. It's going to be highly owned. Kyler, DeAndre, Justin Jefferson, get your shares. John, any final takes around this game?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely higher on the Arizona side. I think even the team totals here are kind of projecting it to be like a track meet, obviously, but pretty competitive. I don't know if it's going to be competitive. Minnesota did not look good to me against Cincinnati. Their offensive line, I bet Minnesota against Cincinnati, and it was because I was worried about Cincinnati's offensive line. I knew Minnesota's wasn't going to be great, but Minnesota's looked like they had the worst offensive line unit in the entire league in week 1. So if that's going to be a thing, I think the defense in Arizona at 2.9K, they had what's his name had 5 sacks last week for Arizona. They're going to put so much pressure on Kirk Cousins to where I don't know if I can trust this offense to keep up with a high-powered offense like Kyler Murray. So I'm obviously I like the game. I'm not going to shit on the game, but I definitely trust the Arizona offense more than I would the Minnesota offense, because I just think that offensive line is going to continue to struggle. I think Kirk Cousins, like Cincinnati was living in the backfield. Like it was like as soon as they snapped the ball, there was somebody putting pressure on Kirk Cousins. Like I think they're going to have problems against Arizona, even though Arizona's secondary isn't the greatest. It's going to, Kirk Cousins needs some time to take advantage of that. I think we could see a big play or two, obviously from Thielen or Jefferson. So I don't hate running it back if you have some Arizona stacks, but I'm just kind of giving a buyer beware take on Minnesota.
So I was trying to figure that out. Was it Cincy's defense that was good, or was it just Minnesota's offensive line that was fucking atrocious last week? But I think you kind of broke it down.
Yeah.
Kyler Murray, DeAndre Hopkins, they're the easy plays. Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, I like the run back. KJ Osborne seen a significant amount of market share for like 7. I don't even know KJ Osborne. Like who the fuck is that? Seven
preseason stud.
Yards.
Preseason stud.
Preseason stud. Yeah, the preseason football guys. They're probably all over it. I missed it. I'd say it's the guys in this. Any love for Dalvin Cook relative? Like, how would you rank? How's Dalvin Cook rank out in your model, Hodge, versus like McCaffrey and Kamara and guys in his range?
From like a pure rating standpoint, he rates well, but not in the sense of obviously Kamara and CMC are going to rate higher, but his salary is just so expensive. And so he's always going to carry a little bit low of a player rating unless I, change the way the model looks at the points per salary. But here's the thing. We always talk about, okay, Devontae Adams going to be chalk, play Aaron Jones. This wide receiver is going to be chalk, play their running back. I mean, This game is going to be centered around Arizona and bringbacks from Minnesota. That's exactly how this is going to – that is the majority of this ownership. So playing Dalvin Cook, I mean, if Dalvin rushes too, that blows up a lot of Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen's run back equity, right? So I think that is probably one place where you can get a lot of leverage on the field. I don't know if I will be doing it, but Dalvin's a large field pivot, I think, and that's about it.
Any thoughts on Chase Edmonds, or do you have how's he grade out?
Really well, actually, because of his salary and because Minnesota is garbage against running backs. They have one of the best opponent plus minuses in my model, or running backs who are playing against Arizona, or running backs who are playing against Minnesota. Sorry. So I think if this game paces, if it goes against what John is saying and they keep up, that's where Chase Edmonds will get hit. That's where he gets his.
Yeah.
But if it goes the way John says, then I think you have to be very cautious about what he's going to do in the receiving game, because that's where he will eat. But he does rate out well. So if you think it is going to keep true to what Vegas is saying and pace well, and Minnesota can hit their implied team total or go over to like 25 points, 26 points, Chase Edmonds should have another productive day at $4,900.
And keep in mind, I already bet Arizona -3 on Sunday, so I'm obviously a little bit biased here. I think they win by a touchdown or more. So,
love the analysis, guys. I think it's going to be an interesting one. Really think this is a good game. Another 4:00 game: Atlanta, Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay -12.5. Totals 52. Implied team total for the Falcons is 20. The Bucs have the highest implied team total on the slate at 32 points. Just going to figure out which receiver is going to go off in this offense. John, I'll kick it to you. What are your thoughts on Atlanta at the Bucs?
Yeah, I mean, I think you can target pretty much every angle of this game. Like, I love this game. Between these 4 afternoon games, for me, it's like, you got to wait and see how ownership shakes out, because obviously everybody's going to be owned to some degree, but based on what the industry is touting and, just how everything shakes out come Sunday morning, we know that there's going to be 1 or 2 of these 4 games that just capture the majority of the ownership. And then the other 2 are just going to be like kind of those forgotten games, to a sense, where instead of getting a stack at 20% owned, you might get it at like 6% owned. Like, that's what I'm trying to identify come Sunday. And I think there's a possibility it could be this game, just because of how bad Atlanta looked. So I think you can look to them as a bounce back. I don't know if I can stomach going back to a Matt Ryan offense after what they did to us last week, but I think you have to, as short-term memory DFS player, it makes sense because Calvin Ridley's still a stud. You can't run against Tampa Bay. So I think Matt Ryan's going to have to throw a bunch. For whatever reason, they weren't throwing the ball deep at all in week 1. Like it didn't make any sense to me. That entire game made no sense to me. Like Ridley had 3 or 4 catches in the first drive and then did nothing the rest of the game. Kyle Pitts let everybody down as chalk. I don't mind going back there if the field's not going to. He did have 8 targets. The production is there. They're basically using him as the wide receiver too. It's just the volume, I should say, is there. The production wasn't there. So I don't mind going back there. He did have a 14 yard catch that was called back due to penalty. He had 1 target in the first half where he got 1 foot down and didn't drag the other one. There were paths to him getting there. It just didn't materialize. So I don't mind going back there. And then obviously the Tampa Bay side, good God, Bob, I know you're a big Brady guy, so you love seeing that offense. That was something to watch outside of Mike Evans, who let everybody down. But Godwin looked like the stud that he is. Antonio Brown looked like pretty much peak Antonio Brown. Rob Gronkowski, I thought it was 2012 or 2009, whatever those years where Gronk was in his prime in New England, he looked pretty fresh to me, had the one-handed scoop there, was running well after the catch. I know I spent a lot of time, but this is a game where, like I said, I think you can target pretty much every angle of this game.
Yeah, I love the takes. I really love this game in tournaments. Hodge, what are your thoughts on this game?
So I always have a tough time playing a quarterback who doesn't use his legs. I don't know if it's a leak that I need to plug or if it's a good thing or what it is, but I genuinely find myself avoiding the guys who don't give me equity with their legs. However, a quarterback with a 30-point implied team total who is running his offense at an extremely efficient and very fast pace, and then you have guys like Chris Godwin who are soaking up. Look, Chris, I think, had a 20% market share of his team's offense through the 20 weeks plus whatever, all the way leading up to the Super Bowl in 2020. And he clearly continued that trend. He had 14 targets again in week 1. This is one of those times where I might have to be exposed to this game just based on ownership. And I mentioned it in the last segment or the last game, but this was the lowest or the least picked stack on my Twitter poll in the little bubble out of all the afternoon slates. And I mean by a wide margin. So I think that this game, even though some of their individual players may command ownership from a projected ownership standpoint, I think the cumulative stack ownership is going to be much lower to where it makes a phenomenal play to have equity in the late slate when honestly you're going to want the PMR going into Sunday. I guarantee it. So I really like this, and running back with Pitts or Calvin is it's a cakewalk. You don't even have to think twice about it. You just take the correlation. One more, Chris Godwin is the highest correlated, shows the most correlation to Tom Brady out of any wide receiver over 2020. So I think that's the guy that you play, and he is the number 1 wide receiver in my Fantasy Labs model. I swear that's the last time I'll mention my Fantasy Labs model because it's boring and nerdy as hell, but I got to mention it when they're up there.
So I think you made a really, really sharp call on total stack ownership. This game is going to, just because you can't, this is why I love this game for tournaments. There's so many different ways you can go in terms of who you're stacking. You can use Godwin as a linchpin, but then you can have Brady, add Antonio Brown to that stack. They're cheap. These guys are cheap. The highest total game on the slate, the highest implied team total on the slate, they're going to go under owned. The flop lag, going back to Pitts, going back to Ridley as a run back. Even Fournette, if Elijah Moore picks up steam, people don't want to, I don't think the Bucs are too bullish on Ronald Jones. So it'd probably be Fournette and maybe Gio in large field tournaments. I think it's very interesting that Gio saw the snaps that he did on the most important drive. I think if they play 2-minute with Gio, this team can obviously play faster. Really like his price tag at 4,200 as he evolves into the offense. I don't think, may not be this week, but I'd like to be ahead of it. Fournette at 5,100, like he can easily make that. He can, like 5,100 is a good price tag if he sees the goal line. Obviously, it wasn't great, but I think they want it. It could be, with the spread being what it is, a good spot for them to get on track in terms of like the running game as well. Yeah, I love this game. I think this game is very interesting. Brady spreads it around. It gives you differentiated stacks. It's a great tournament game. Dallas at San Diego. It's going to be the chalkiest game on the slate by far. This is what I'm saying. Like these stacks are going to be so chalky. Like it's going to be very difficult to kind of differentiate your stacks when you're stacking up this game. Do you want to get into this game? You want to kick off Dallas at San Diego?
I don't know. I mean, yeah, more than happy to. But this is kind of like that Arizona-Minnesota game for me, where I'm not sure that there's a ton of analysis, like hard-hitting analysis, other than you can use Elliott to differentiate. I think that's probably the biggest thing here is you can just go back to Ezekiel Elliott at $6,200 to differentiate and gain leverage against Dak and CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper. Don't fade.
I would guess that's the median projected stack is Dallas.
Yes.
So Cedric Wilson, CD, and Dak likely would be, I would imagine.
And Amari, yeah.
So that's like a complete X for me, usually.
Damn, Bobby just cutting them out of his player pool.
Not like X as like one.
I get it.
Yeah, I'm just not going to play. It's like the median projected stack. Like I don't know. It's just difficult to win with that. You know exactly what I'm thinking.
No, I absolutely understand it. And I actually look, I really, really like this game. And I wrote up Keenan Allen as one of my core plays. He will be a guy who I have a lot of come Sunday. His market share of targets in a game that paces this quick is way too hard for me to get away from. I think that's a very safe and extremely high upside play in small field tournaments. In the Millie Maker, you could probably move away from it. But this game, look, I don't have an analysis, man. It paces well. The total's insane. We know where the market share of targets are going. So maybe John has a hot take for us.
Yeah.
No, I wouldn't say I have a hot take. I have two notes, basically. The one is, if you guys saw, Evan Silva had a really good tweet earlier in the week when he was sort of recapping. And basically he was saying how they sort of added some routes to Mike Williams' route tree, that it's allowing him to be more of just a down the field threat. At 6.1K, like, I love Mike Williams in general. I think we all do. But especially if he's going to be more than just like hey, Mike Williams, run straight down the field and maybe we'll connect on a deep ball and he gets 5 targets a game. Like, he had 11 targets this in week 1. And obviously some of that's going to funnel over to Austin Eckler, which gets to my next point is I love Austin Eckler in a game where we know the receivers are going to be the most popular. Like, would it shock anybody? Like, nobody's really going to play Eckler. At least I don't think, because he's more expensive than the Naji Harris range. He's not as expensive as the Kamara CMC. So if you're paying up, you're going to those guys or Nick Chubb. He's going to be that unowned guy who we know has a ceiling, and people aren't going to want to play him because he had no targets last week. Like, that's not going to stick throughout the year. So I don't mind Eckler as a way to differentiate with those stacks. Like, if you're running a Herbert Keenan stack, like, I know it gets pricey, and that's where it gets interesting, is you're going to have to find a way to save salary. But if you go Herbert, Eckler, Keenan, run it back with CeeDee Lamb or whatever, and then you're just going to have to find value at the rest of your roster. But I don't mind Eckler as the differentiator, and obviously love Mike Williams, especially if, like I said, he's going to be more than just a down the field threat at 6.1K. But those are the only things I had to add. Like Ryan said, like, this is just, I mean, it's an amazing game, but obviously for that reason, everybody's going to want to play it. So you really have to identify where you can be unique and possibly get leverage against the field.
I want to hit on 2 great points that I think the both of you made. For one, Haji, Ezekiel Elliott, 6,200. If everyone's going to be using this Dak stack, Zeke's an incredible differentiator in tournaments. At that price tag, just people kind of gone sour on Zeke. I think it's a way to get different and a way to basically get a part of this total without playing like the obvious chalk. John, on your end, like the Mike Williams call, Mike Lombardi's using Mike Williams pretty much in like a Michael Thomas-esque role. Like, he's seen the 12 targets. We've never seen Mike Williams as a possession receiver. Mike Lombardi was the previous OC for the Saints, and they said over the summer that he kind of wanted to incorporate Mike Williams in that Mike Thomas role. I think we're seeing that, or we saw a little bit of it last week with that kind of market share within the San Diego offense. I mean, LA Chargers, honestly, we haven't seen before. San Diego, I'm sorry.
I did the same thing when I was making the banner. I'm like, Dallas Cowboys at San Diego. Oh, damn
yeah,
it.
I keep doing that with my groups. It's fucking driving me crazy. I keep going Sandy, trying to find like San Diego and Cruncher, and it's like LAC.
Doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be the two like main points. Keenan Allen, I think he's great. I love this Chargers side. Jared Cook, I think, is a way to get different with this team at 3,900, especially with this Chargers stack, especially if Higby is going to be like an egregious chalk at the tight end position. I think you can look to Jared Cook at 3,900 in this game to kind of differentiate your lineups or differentiate a stack in that sense. So that would be my main takeaways. And yeah, I love Eckler as well, John. He's a fucking great play. Pretty much covers everything in the Dallas-San Diego game. Tennessee at Seattle. Tennessee, major flop lag. We're going to get them seriously under-owned. 54-point total. Dallas is a 5.5 favorite. Tennessee's coming across the country. 24.25 for Tennessee's implied, and Seattle's implied is 29.75. Jon Kelly, you can finish us off here. We'll be the guy that kicks this one off, and I think this is the last game.
Yeah, I obviously like the game. You know, going back to what we've been talking about, the entire theme of these afternoon slates is like whichever of these stacks is going to be the lowest owned, that's probably where I'm going to get the most leverage and just be overweight to those guys. I think we see that on the Tennessee side because they just didn't. I know AJ Brown sort of luck boxed that late touchdown there to kind of get there, but like, is Julio dust? Like, or is it just like is it just like the offense? Like, it pains me to even ask that because Julio, like, I'm a huge Julio guy. I know everybody, like, you love Julio, but you hate him. I've always sort of loved him, even though I probably shouldn't. And I was taking him in the offseason when he dropped to like the 4th and 5th round, and he really looked rough in week 1. Like, I don't know if it was just like him and Tannehill not connecting on a lot of stuff, and maybe they'll work out those kinks throughout the year, but it's also possible that maybe he's, and I say dust to be funny. Like, obviously I don't mean like he's worthless, but I am serious in the fact that like he may not be the old Julio, the Julio that's going to go and put up 200 receiving yards in his ceiling type performances. And that's what I'm more so questioning, I guess. So it's definitely something that I'm going to keep an eye on. Obviously you would think, you know, with AJ Brown opposite of him, like he's going to have opportunities, but yeah, man, it wasn't pretty for him. Wasn't pretty for the big dog either. The only thing that was good for the big dog was we finally saw him starting to be incorporated in the passing role. And that was pretty encouraging. I think he had 4 catches. So yeah, anytime we're going to see Derrick Henry have even a little bit of a passing game role, I'm interested. But I think the main thing on this game that I like is the DK Metcalf, Russ Wilson to DK Metcalf. Tyler Lockett obviously had the big game last week. I know Metcalf sort of sucked out there too late, but yeah, I really like DK Metcalf here. These Tennessee corners are not good. I think we're going to see them in a lot of shootout games, and I think DK Metcalf has the big, you know, we know dating back the last couple of seasons, we know Lockett and Metcalf are going to sort of differentiate and swap out whenever they have their big games, and I think it's DK's turn this week.
Yeah, I like those calls. I'm with you. It's Julio dust. I can't figure out either. I'm totally in the weeds in terms of like if I should roster him or not. Hodge, do you want to get into this Tennessee Seattle game here?
Yeah, this is my favorite game. So when we're talking about games in the late slate, games on the slate entirely where I think players are going to go overlooked, this is without a favorite. This is without a doubt my favorite game, the game that I will be the most exposed to. You have the second highest over-under sitting at 53, and Seattle has the second highest implied team total of 29.5. I mean, it's just insane. Those points are way too good. These pace, both of these teams ran at a very good pace in 2020 and continued that in week 1. You have Seattle receivers with a very favorable opponent plus minus of 3.7, of plus 5.5, and then Russell Wilson with an opponent plus minus of 3.7. So I think it's extremely plus EV to double stack Lockett and Metcalf, run it back with AJ Brown, who's averaging at least 7 targets over his last 16 games, and he led all Titans wide receivers in weighted opportunity rating. This game to me is the game that I will either make money with or I will lose it all. And I think that that's a perfectly fine place for me to take a stance on the field if this game is going to come in at like the 4th highest cumulative ownership. I think that's just the perfect spot that you want to put yourself in. So this is where I'm at, and this is definitely my favorite game of the week.
Yeah, we're definitely going to see lower ownership on this game relative to the other 3. I love flop lag situations. I play a lot of MME and golf, and I'm always chasing flop lag. I like going to AJ Brown and Julio. I feel like that's kind of the sharper player is going to be on like this stack in general, but I think it gets there. Like, I don't see why it couldn't. It's nice to hear that Derrick Henry got 4 passes. Like, they don't have anyone behind him, so he had to see passes. But I wish they would just kind of throw the ball to him more, but they decide not to all the time. I don't know. I have no idea. Gerald Everett, I don't think he's as good of a play as kind of everyone else kind of thinks. Like, Will Dissly's seen a lot of snaps in that situation, so just what I would like, right?
You've got Metcalf and Lockett consuming 50% of this team's targets. Yeah. That's just put your money right there every week, and it'll be very plus EV over the course of the next 16, 17, 18 playoff weeks, so on and so forth for you. I think that's all you want to do.
You said play them together this week, correct?
I mean, depending on your field size, yes. I think in the Millie Maker, it's probably a little bit more plus EV to not do the full onslaught because you have to be perfect. So if Lockett only gives you 17, and while DK does 30, like there's going to be another wide receiver at $7,200 who does more than 17 points who will ship the Millie than Lockett. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So in on a road to $1 million, no, don't play them together. And smaller field stuff, yes.
I love that take. I'm happy we had you on, Hodge, this week. That's the stuff we want to hear. Those are the tournament takes that we're looking for. So I love the contest selection too, just how you're building certain lineups, different contests. Like that's so important. Just over the course of a DFS season. Don't know how many casuals we have, but I don't know. If you're just playing along, these are good tidbits. Definitely good tidbits. I like Lockett, Metcalf. I think Metcalf, if I had to choose one this week, it'd probably be Metcalf because Lockett went off last week. But I like the idea of playing them both together in smaller field stuff as well. Trying to figure out basically how to close this out here.
I was sitting there waiting for it. I'm like, come on, Bob, do the plug.
What's the plug? So like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, right?
There it is.
YouTube
there it is. I mean, it's your YouTube channel. You got to tell them smash the like button. Smash the like button. Comment your favorite stacks and subscribe to Bob's YouTube.
Yeah, subscribe to my YouTube. Fucking go follow Ryan Hodge, and well, you probably already do. You don't follow me. Hit follow me too. Fantasy Labs, Ryan Hodge, all his content. Jon Kelly, FTN. Mine's over at Run Pure if you're interested. Thanks for hanging out, guys. Peace. I don't know.